is probably new to. That is that everybody has a secret box that is a place where they keep their fun. Now, most of us might find that a bit childish. We might be ashamed to admit that we have a secret box somewhere. Some of us have many, and I'm one of those people. I have lots of secret boxes, but I thought that I would like to share one of those secret boxes with you this morning. Here, let me show it to you. This secret box has fun in it. It has play in it. Do you want to see what's inside? I'll share some with you. Now, my secret box goes back to my college days, and it has a lot of things in it about being a clown. Now, looking at my face with its hair and the glasses, you might say, how could you have ever been a clown? And it is tricky with grease paint and facial hair. I haven't done it for many years, but I used to work part-time and never professionally as a clown. What is a clown? Well, a clown is a person who wears unique makeup, and it's usually on their face, and they wear flamboyant clothes, and they perform comedy in a state of open-mindedness, and usually it's by subverting cultural norms. And all the time they do this while trying to use physical comedy. Well, I've got a bad back now, and I'm not as young as I used to be, so the physical comedy doesn't come quite so easily. But once you're a clown, I think you're always there. So when I open this box, the first thing I notice, and this always happens, is it has a wonderful smell. And if you have a secret box, open that box, go up to the attic and open that box, take it out from under the bed and smell what's inside. It will bring back memories. It always does for me. So what's in my box? Well, it's mostly grease paint. So here's a can of clown white. It's not very well used. It hasn't been used for many years. Well, actually kind of used. A lot of it's been taken out of there. Clown white is the foundation for being a clown. And I need to let you know that completely opposite to blackface, whiteface is intentionally an inclusive element in putting on makeup. It's not to exclude anybody. It's not to make fun of anybody. The point is to reveal, not to conceal. You put white on your face so that your expressions can be seen more clearly and exaggerated. Whiteface was actually invented in the 19th century by a British clown and has been used in theater ever since. It's for those of you who use makeup on a regular basis, who maybe some people probably do, you know what a foundation is. You put it on so you can start to build on it. That's exactly what whiteface is. You put it on your face. I'm not going to put it on this morning. It takes too long to get it off, but it will let you make your own face the way you want it to be. And when I say that this is inclusive, that is shown in the next stage of putting on a clown face, and that is the colors. Here's one box of colors. You can see it's every color of the rainbow can be used. Clowns are raceless. They have no race. Anybody can be a clown, and you can use whatever colors you want, however they speak to you, to put on your clown face. Now, some of these pieces are broken. Some of them have been used many times. Some of them hardly been used at all, but they are all part of putting on your clown face. And for me, it was an amazing experience. I grew up in a poor family in Western Pennsylvania, and here I was ordering clown makeup from New York City and finding all these wonderful things, these wonderful little tubes of makeup that you put on with a brush. And I actually have, and I'm not going to do this for you this morning, some mascara in here. I learned to put on mascara so you can accentuate your eyelashes. That's important for a clown, because when you're a clown, you need to be able to show who you are and what your expressions are to everybody. Now, if in case you're curious, once you put on clown makeup, why doesn't it come off? Well, it's not water-based. It's actually grease-based. It's grease paint. And in order to make clown makeup stay, you have to use a powder puff. Now, mine's in this jar here, safely is in this jar. It's full of baby powder. If you put baby powder on white face and then spray it down with water, it's very difficult to get off. It stays in place for hours. And that is, and I even have a brush that you used to brush off the excess with. It's all this stuff just brings back memories of play, and a very specific type of play that I'll get to in just a moment. But did you know that clowns have been around for thousands of years? They have. The earliest recorded clowns are in the 5th dynasty of Egypt, somewhere around 2400 BCE. So clowns have been around for a long time. The classic clown that you know probably comes from the late Middle Ages, and as I say, early modernity, before we get white-faced clowns that have the exaggerated faces painted on. But they did lots of different things. They performed in circuses, they performed on theater. But one thing that maybe you don't know about clowns is they also performed in churches. There was a very early tradition of the holy fool, the person who used play in their worship. And that's how I became a clown. I started to be a clown when I was in a church group with a college extracurricular group that went around to churches and places where people were in need and performed for them as clowns. So it really had a religious aspect to it in some respect, but it was more fun than anything else. You see, the clown looks at everyday life, and what's easy for you and me is hard for a clown. A clown has difficulty getting along in this world, and there's a message there for people that this is actually making fun of the things about ourselves that we find so easy. There's absurdity to it, and clowns revel in the absurdity. Watch kids at play. It's absurd. They're doing stupid things, fun things. What happens as we grow up and we grow out of it? Maybe we shouldn't. And that's why I would like you to think about your secret boxes. Where is your secret box that has your play in it? When's the last time you opened it? I'll confess, until yesterday, I haven't opened this box for years, but I'm glad I did. And I encourage you to open your secret boxes too.
Playhouses, where I would go to have a good time, have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. As a child in the 1950s, I became fascinated with early children's television shows. Some of you might remember Sally Starr, Gene London, Chuck McCann, Jerry Lewis, and others. I enjoyed being entertained by them, but I also thought I could do what they do. I could make my own show business. I imagined my show in my bedroom with the curtain window as the stage proclaiming the Tom Repash Show. I would draw scenery on paper and tape it to the window, presenting stories like The Wizard of Oz. It was a fantasy world of play that no one else knew about. A few years later, I was ready for an audience. I set up a stage in the basement of my parents' home and invited neighborhood kids to come over and watch the puppet shows that I put on. They were silly little stories, very much like Punch and Judy scenarios, with one character chasing after another. When my mom and dad saw how dedicated I was, they bought a real puppet theater that allowed me to upgrade my shows and use a stage curtain that would slide open and close, just like in real playhouses. In my teens, I visited New York with my parents and saw a real show on a stage for the first time. That was it. I was hooked. The thrill of seeing people perform just for me was overwhelming, and I was especially taken by musical theater. I saw as many shows as I could, first using my mom as chaperone, and then going by myself when she decided I could be trusted to get on the bus alone. I would make it a point to get Wednesdays off from my job at a local butcher shop so I could attend matinees in New York. When I got a car to go to college, I would regularly drive to see plays at the Pennsylvania Playhouse, Bucks County Playhouse, and the Pocono Playhouse. Flash forward many years, and when my son Michael was young, I constructed a portable playhouse that would fit in a doorway. It could be stored in a cardboard tube so we could always put on a show wherever we were. I would make it a point to experience local theater offerings wherever I was. At last count, I've seen nearly 2,000 productions. And for many years, I saved all the playbills as my playhouse memories tucked in my basement. Although I had to part with them when I moved back to Bethlehem, I have kept a list of the shows I have seen. Those memories are priceless. At some point, when I really got into paper crafting, I created a collection of toy theaters, including scenery and actors that could be moved on and off the stages. Interestingly, I discovered a rather sizable group around the world of people who construct and collect these toy theaters. Perhaps the most fun I ever had in playhouses was performing in community theater when I lived in New Jersey. I was just thrilled to be a member of the cast in such classic shows as Guys and Dolls, The Music Man, 42nd Street, Anything Goes. I suppose I could have continued doing them, but in my heart, I always knew that most of the actors I played with were much more talented than me. And so I went off stage and had my fun playing as a member of the audience. The pandemic has really been hard for the performers on the stages of those playhouses recently, and those like me who fill the seats to watch them. There's been a small reopening recently, and I was delighted to see a few productions, even with masks in place. I've seldom talked about my childhood playhouse fantasies, partly because I was a bit embarrassed, and partly because I wanted to keep them all to myself. However, I shared them at a recent meeting of a covenant group when we talked about play. Now, many years later, it felt good to share some of the things that gave me joy. Recently, I became a grandfather, and so I got out the portable puppet theater that I made 40 years ago. I look forward to sharing my playhouse with Felix.
I have grown both spiritually and personally by participation in our covenant group. Through readings and questions in a supportive atmosphere, we practice attentive listening as we reflect on topics that can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves as we talk about fundamental ideas and beliefs. When we consider the topic of play, a question we were asked was something like, what was your favorite toy in kindergarten? To answer this question, we have to travel back to our childhood, which with play as a topic, can look at it through a positive lens. This made me remember that living out of town before a time of scheduled play dates and having only 4 brothers as playmates, one of whom declared that girls don't play baseball and got away with it in those times. A lot of my play was through reading and imagination. Turning a large slab of rock in the woods behind our house into a ship and moss into food for the crew, I think I spent more time arranging the journeys than reaching destinations. And reading showed me the pleasure in playing with words, which is poetry. So I'd like to share a playful poem with you. And as we know, poetry, even when playful, reflects on our fundamental ideas and beliefs. And this is Nostalgia by Billy Collins. Remember the 1340s? We were doing a dance called the catapult. You always wore brown, the color craze of the decade. And I was draped in one of those capes that were popular, the ones with unicorns and pomegranates and needlework. Everyone would pause for beer and onions in the afternoon. And at night, we would play a game called Find the Cow. Everything was hand lettered then, not like today. Where is the summer of 1572 gone? Brocade and sonnet marathons were the rage. We used to dress up in flags of rival baronies and conquer one another in cold rooms of stone. Out on the dance floor, we were all doing the struggle, while your sister practiced the Daphne all alone in her room. We borrowed the jargon of farriers for our slang. These days, language seems transparent, a badly broken code. The 1790s will never come again. Childhood was big. People would take walks to the very tops of hills and write down what they saw in their journals without speaking. Our collars were high and our hats were extremely soft. We would surprise each other with alphabets made of twigs. It was a wonderful time to be alive, or even dead. I'm very fond of the period between 1815 and 1821. Europe trembled while we sat still for our portraits. And I would love to return to 1901, if only for a moment, time enough to wind up a music box and do a few dance steps. Or shoot me back to 1922 or 1941, or at least let me recapture the serenity of last month when we picked berries and glided through the afternoons in a canoe. Even this morning would be an improvement over the present. I was in the garden then, surrounded by the hum of bees and the Latin names of flowers, watching the early light flash off the slanted windows of the greenhouse and silver the limbs on the rows of dark hemlocks. As usual, I was thinking about the moments of the past, letting my memory rush over them like water rushing over the stones on the bottom of a stream. I was thinking a little about the future, too. That place where people are doing a dance we cannot imagine. A dance whose name we can only guess. And this is from Collins, Sailing Alone Around the Room.
It has been my privilege over the last year to facilitate our first pilot covenant group. And when I asked this group if they would like to help me lead a worship service, do a worship service together, they all jumped in and said yes, and haven't they been doing a marvelous job? And it's been coming together, and they've done this job because we've gotten to know each other so well over this last year. We only meet once a month, but we go deep every time. And it has been fun, even when we don't talk about fun. Yet that topic really seemed to hit a chord with everyone. And in choosing the topic, everyone said, well, we want to do this on fun. Well, that's great. But it has been fun because there's something special and fun and warming about being able to go deep with one another. What we do is we reflect, we don't discuss. Discuss comes from the same root as percuss, to go against. We don't discuss topics, we reflect individually, but in the group together on our topics. And we allow a lot of space for silence, which can seem awkward at the beginning. And in this way, we learn so much about each other and about ourselves. And there is so much fun in that. And even today, I have learned so much more about the folks in our first covenant group. Now we're reforming new groups for this coming year. And if this intrigued you, I hope you will join us. Please send me a note. Let me know that you'd like to join one of our new groups that we'll be forming. And you too can experience the fun, the joy, and the depth of getting to know yourself and one another more deeply as we do the work of awakening the spirit together. And helping to heal the world.